what is lingering in the field to help everyone to really simply return to that point of perfection, to remembering that your body template is already perfect, that you can already tune in, that you have the encoding of the entire universe creation is you.
Welcome to the Consciousness of the Way. I'm your humble servant and seafood, Taoist Master San Qing, and another amazing conversation we're about to have today. I want to welcome to the podcast Viviane Chauvet. Is that right? That's pretty much right.
It
Yes.
was
Anyway,
perfect.
I'm double, triple checking myself. I feel like a giddy little kid. I'm very excited to have you in the podcast today, my dear friend. You're an ambassador for the Arcturians. You're also a well-established and well-known ascension teacher, and you have been traveling many lifetimes to bring this information to this current one right now. I want to thank you for coming to the podcast. Welcome, my dear friend.
You are most welcome. Thank you for this warm welcome, Sanjin. It is such a joy to be with you and everyone watching and will be watching. It's an honor to be in your presence.
And so let's just dive right in and do a sort of an abbreviated version of how you got here.
Yes, of course. So I am part of a very ancient intergalactic race known as the Arcturians. We are originally from a light system called the Butes constellation. So within our realms, we have evolved over thousands and thousands of years. We are, in fact, millions of years old as a civilization. So from the moment of our inception, we have learned and evolved to be the well-known diplomats and ambassadors, and we play many roles in the multiverse, along with a multitude of galactic alliances, group consciousness, and other delegations. So, in a nutshell, when we perceived the highest probability of a civilization and a planet that will be reaching its point of maturity and evolution in terms of returning to the divine, I immediately consulted with our Council of Light on Arcturus, as well as our group of elders. And I volunteered to be assigned to the solar system and to be a part of the ambassadorial roles that will be for Gaia. And so I wanted to retain the purest, highest form of my Arcturian self while embodying a step down physical frequency or a physical body of another race. And, I took on this form, this human form, so I can be with all of you on the planet and being able to have these profound discussion, teachings, experience together. And so it was quite an endeavor. And again, in a very big summary, it took us quite a while to perfect the hybrid DNA that was necessary to connect me with the foundational energies of Gaia and the human race. And so we have the collaboration of a very specific human lineage that we've been communicating with them. It's a partnership, it's a conscious soul choice, it's a positive partnership. And then many generations later, then the time for me to return physically onto the planet had come, and then I came and I returned to the earth. And so what was interesting about my journey, if I may say so, is that I could have come directly with full memory intact and skipping many steps. I didn't have to go through, childhood and growing up and learning to walk and talk. And you know how we do it here. We're babies, and we're learning to rediscovering all of our senses and capacity and faculties. And even though that part of myself, meaning my Arcturian avatar self, knows exactly what I am doing here on the planet, this other aspect of me was experiencing this human life. I wanted to understand fully what is the journey feels like. What is it like to go back to the ABCs, as I call it, and really going into a deep level of remembering, connecting. And so it's been a very fascinating journey to understand profoundly and into my heart as well the connection to Gaia, how human beings and the human blueprint really works, the challenge, the beauty, the joy, crying together, rising together, talking with each other, communicating, sharing, and all of this, and being able to understand the very deep pool of what humanity is really about, and re-rising together again. Because if you look at the organic timeline of ascension, in reality, it's a return. It's a grand return. You're reascending again. So this has been done before. It's just been forgotten in generations of program and within an artificial time construct. So we're here to help to dismantle, to release, unwind, if you want, all of these layers. We're here to supporting the release. So we have a different perspective, a different approach to how we help. Some spiritual teachers or other teachers like to use programming or reprogramming your mind or reprogramming your DNA. We prefer to use the word reawakening the natural faculties and the encoding within your DNA template, whether it's your body template, whether it's on a unconscious level, subconscious, and of course on the spiritual etheric level. We prefer to have this approach of stimulating naturally and organically that reawakening. Why? Because we feel that it's a lot more empowering for people, and this way we can better align everyone with their own unique blueprint and their own unique gifts and abilities. So deep breath. That was a quick summary, but just in a nutshell, this is what I have come to do and where I originally come from.
Amen to that, my dear friend.
Yes.
Amen to that. This is very exciting. It's a very exciting time. I personally dipped my toe in the consciousness, spiritual consciousness journey as a Taoist seeker over 32 years ago. I started channeling my teacher Latsu. I then went deep into training and acquired two lineages of Taoism, and I'm a priest ordained in both of those lineages. And it's interesting how you get, today what I focus on is really teaching people the internal alchemy processes to transmute what is conceptual in your mind and transfer it into a realized effect of this material space. So taking something that would be, an ideal, a concept, a thought process, and actually turn it into a manifestation, magic healing that is verifiable, self realized as now. And this sort of seems very much in line with a lot of the things that you're speaking of, that there's some universal merging of this unity. You mentioned, Mother Gaia, and for us, we speak of the center point of all things being the primordial mother, which is the Wu Ji. The entry of that space within Taoism is everything. The template of reality is just dropping down that as you see or perceive reality, it is nothing more than a bellows, meaning that everything is contracting and expanding at the same time. You're all things and nothing at the same time. And from this, you use this deciphering code, this universal emblem people refer to as the yin and yang, as the realization of the merging of these polarizing energy potential, right? Electromagnetism, the simplicity of that is really a distortion of what we call cut from the cloth of perfection. You have a unified state, the oneness, the singular, as a physicist would put it, this returning to this state of knowing that becomes the now moment and can only be transmuted if you are no place, person, or thing. This realization becomes clear when you transmute manifestation, magic, healing. It's, as we would put it, a point of no return. As you mentioned, the ascension to return to, we start with a return is to remember who you are.
Mhm.
For remembering, you bring to yourself a self-realized aha moment, the Sherlock to your Watson, the elementary, my dear Watson. And you find that, oh my goodness, wow, the misalignment was the distortion, the dukkha, that a dear friend of mine, a Buddhist monk, would say is the emotional content of this reality, which is far from the center point. But you must be distracted to remember. And of course, it starts with a misalignment to be realigned. And so I'm just gratefully very appreciative of all the things that you're sharing with people that are aligning with your message of understanding and your transmission, your attuning to your lineage and what that means within this state of what I like to call spiritual consciousness. You bring forth this self-evident realization, and it cannot be replicated, it cannot be transmuted, it cannot be created until you move through that point of no return from a Taoist perspective by accessing the center point, the vesica, the center point of all things between the breath in and the breath out, between yin and yang, is this primordial mother, which we refer to as Wu Wei. Bruce Lee coined it back in the 70s as the flow, baby, the flow, which I think everyone kind of gets immersed in, and they love this conceptually. And a lot of new age spiritual manifestors and teachers of that type of like state of mind will force more on the idea action must be implemented for it to be realized, which goes against the very teaching of understanding Wu Wei as effortless action, effortless effort, that truly transmuting your thoughts are no longer thoughts of your identity. They become the very epicenter of all things. That means that when you think it, it becomes realized. Manifestation, magic, healing, it's no longer a separate experience. But to obtain that, you go on this journey, this alchemical, realization within a Taoist path to synergize, to synchronize all these potentials and make them realize. So you're attached, you are now this present moment. And so when you transmit your lineage, your information, direct source, all these types of things, what was the first indicator for you on your journey that this information was coming through very clearly and you could validate it as not being a delusion, a deluded state of transitory, you know, very, it's not permanent in any way. And there's this substance that is generated. It's like a plasma sort of substance, I like to call it. It's, very similar to, have you ever seen Ghostbusters? The Slimer. They slimed you a little bit. It's so palpable that it's undeniable. When was that your journey of realization, or how do you perceive the energy potential that validates what you're experiencing as being a knowing?
Well, it's a great question, and thank you for this. What you speak of, for me, it's always been embedded throughout my entire journey. As far as my memory can go, even as a little infant, I've always looked through the eyes, through an Arcturian or an outside intergalactic being, or a star being, if you want to call it this way, to looking through the eyes to this vehicle, to this vessel. And I understood that this vessel, it's my point of contact. So we talk about the soul evolving. Well, the soul who comes here to this earth or this place of physical manifestation, they first need to feel the identity. And they take identity to this body, and then they identify to the label, the personality trait of the personality they co-create and develop over time, whether it's through, cultural background, historical influences, educational, some kind of religion or spiritual belief system, their own lineage and their ancestral point of view, and so forth and so forth. So that's one thing I understood, is that to better really take a deep dive into this journey, into this step down physical frequency onto a planet or a celestial being that we call a planet, I would understand that I am constantly in communication, or what we call holographic telepathic communications, with my point of origin, in the sense that for me, And from this point, this lifetime perspective, my point of origin right now is my Arcturian avatar self, because that's the construct I need to build and I chose to evolve into in order to come and support many souls on a planet that will need to reascend and release themselves from a multitude of construct, because we know reality is built on a multitude of projection, mental perspective, mental construct, emotional attachments, and now we get very involved with our experience. And so for me, it's always been part of my reality. It's always been part of who I am. I'll give you an example. I remember even being in kitten garden. I call it kitten garden because for me, we're a bunch of kittens, and we play and we are little 5 year olds and we move around and most of them are unconscious because we're still moving in and out of our body at that age and we're still completely open the source energy. And I'm sitting there in a classroom, and I remember looking at this very tall being that we call the adult and the teacher, the authority figure. And then that authority figure lovingly asked the kids or the children there, you're going to be assigned this, you're going to be doing this, you're going to be, doing painting or working with dolls or working with building blocks. I remember wooden building blocks. And I stood there and I looked at to reassess my environment and the synergy of this dynamic, and I found it was pointless. I find no value in engaging in playing with plastic doll or wooden block or things like that. So I told the teacher, I said, I see no points in that. I would prefer to have something more creative or constructive. And she couldn't understand why a 5 year old would ask such a request. Uh, because again, physically, you will look at me, or at the time, the teacher will look at the physical body, the identity with my name. That's my earthly name, Viviane Chauvet. This is how people know me, can address, and it's an identity I took on. So at that stage of consciousness and her frame of reference as a teacher guiding 5 year old in a pre-construct, a first level of a school system, it was logic to guide them in a certain way. For me, it was very illogical because I was simply vibrating and coexisting just in a different frame of reality, a different frame of perceived reality that the teacher was. So, one thing I've learned very quickly, I had to adapt. So, when I went to school, I have learned to simply comply with the teacher reality, and then it will allow me to learn from that perspective and being able to navigate through with more ease rather than finding obstacle or being pushed down or being taught and I have to comply and go in a certain way. Luckily my mother knew better about who I was and she would teach, coach the teacher just how to communicate with me so I can really better understand what they're saying. But this one example is only to illustrate how I've always been perceiving reality. So when I travel, which I have more intensively over the last 3 years, when I travel, whether it's to sacred sites, places, anywhere on the planet, I always connect with the consciousness of that part of the world. I can feel where is the energy, where is the frame of reality, what is the perceive consciousness there, how people are evolving, what level of projected reality have they co-created, and how I'm able to navigate through that to learn from their perspective. And I always ask, okay, so I am at that point of the world. I am on this island. I am on this sacred site. I'm going to ask, connect with the Masters of Light, the Great Council of Light. I'm connecting directly to what we call the Supreme Prime Creator and ask as a conduit of this light, what what service, what can I do, what is it I'm here to support that part of the world. And this is why I do communicate also with the consciousness of the planet that is a living being, still part of the multiverse, part of creation, part of the same living force energy that we're made of. It's just again different role that we take on, like this consciousness that is part of the all there is, known as a planet, She is made of the same substance of energy and light and prana that your body is, or my physical vessel, or any intergalactic groups. It's just recognizing how different consciousness are interacting with each other. It's really recognizing the multi frequencies are coming in. Now we're utilizing different semantics because it's more from, again, we're coexisting completely outside of your frame of reality. So we're going to be utilizing different way to communicate, oftentimes a common point of understanding and wisdom, whether it's to your practice for over 30 years, whether it's Buddhism, which I have connected in the past with many, uh, Buddhism monk. I've been in presence of them, part of long meditation, and I have explored different avenue to understand the commonality, how we are all interconnected. So ultimately, for us, we know that we all part of the one singularity aspect of the prime creator, and how this holographic creation has been. It's a reflection of that, and how we are evolving, expanding, releasing attachment, releasing emotional cord, releasing identities, and we're evolving more and more to understand how we are returning to this amazing, very intelligent, ever expanding multiverse. And so, in my perspective, I simply bring the energy, the wisdom, the projection, the frequency, the light codes from a very ancient civilization that have evolved in a complete different aspect, different plane of existence from this planet, and how we can still connect and find many points of connection. One thing that my Arcturian father always said: no one on this planet reinvent the wheel. We're simply rediscovering the wheel from different angles and different methodology and thought system and perception. And we are simply relearning or re-showing each other that here I understand that perspective of the wheel, so to speak, and I have this perspective. And when we bring together, the very core essence of it is understanding that we are part of the supreme prime creator, whatever names you want to give. It's for us, it's just semantics, but it's really about understanding that we are part of that ultimate substance, that supreme energy that we are representation of, we are holographic projection of, we are multidimensional beings who have been embodying different role, different experiences, different level of teaching and conscious evolution that allow the supreme part of our divine self to really re-evolve. If that makes sense.
Booyah. Now, it's always interesting because your journey as a Taoist seeker or a seeker of any kind to remembering who you are is self-realized. It's an experiential moment where the experience outweighs the words, the definitions, the perceptions, because a lot of this stuff is perception, filtered, subject to the individual. And how do you obtain this knowing of the truth? I always remind people your truth is the only truth you need to be concerned with. The absolute truth is for you to determine what that is. But when someone goes, hey, this is the absolute truth, I always tell people
Hmm.
about face and run in the other direction. When we look at this, and for any of my disciple students, 126's subscribers, every conversation I have with incredible beings like yourself is an experience. If you are thinking, you are not knowing. If you're knowing, you are feeling. And that feeling right now is a substance, right? We call it the primordial mother, the chi. You reference to prana. It's an it's a unified, ultimate, frequential evidence of now. Now, frequency, all things are determined by that. If we're talking about a holographic model, which you refer to many times through your own admission, would reference more the idea of this multi-dimensional, physics sort of based idea of what reality is, which I don't have any problem with. I like the idea of sharing it as a multi-dimensional perception. Within Nidan, we call it internal alchemy. I teach you Nigong, which is the internal power that makes everything validated and realized. Being able to play with these polarizing, dualistic expressions of this material will come in the form of energy potential. And so when we're talking about the substance, like the chill you just got up your spine, this is evidence of that. The chill you're getting and the expanding, the validation of this oscillating symbiotic unity that we're experiencing right now is evidence of that knowing, that charge that you're getting. The fact that I can move my hands and we have this relationship, this dance that we're having, and it's energetic potential validates the truth. It goes beyond the words, it goes beyond anything. And so, how I look at it is, show me. I'm a Pepsi Challenge guy. I don't know whether you remember that from the 80s. Have you ever heard of the Pepsi Challenge from the 80s? It was a phenomenon in pop culture from the 80s in America. And so they'd go around and they'd have a can of Coke and a can of Pepsi, and they'd put it down and they'd put two cups over the top of it, and then they'd offer it to some unassuming passerby and say, I want you to drink these two and tell me which one you like. And of course, it's always like, well, I like this one. Well, this is Pepsi. You betcha. So the Pepsi challenge for me is always being able to show me what that means, right? So, what I'm referencing to, the biofield that we're embodying right now, the merging of the energy potential that we have, and we're experiencing it through this oscillating effect in a more practical, sort of like scientific-based parapsychologist perspective, as we reference physics, the holographic model. We're talking about psychokinesis. We're talking about precognition. So when I can do this and everyone can feel it, you can feel it, everyone can feel the oscillating, and the fact that I look at your aura and it's a shimmering silver platinum like substance with these, I don't know what they call them, beings with big black eyes. I have no idea what they are. Arcturians, I have no idea what Arcturians look like. Back in the day, 30 years ago, one of the things that I do is exorcisms, right? Part of the ritual of being a priest. And I can tell you, when someone would come to me with a psychotic episode 30 years ago, I would take them and unravel the very state that they're in, have them realize they're at a level, a path of ascending to the returning to who they are. And there was a normalcy as you exercise this low frequency stuff. Now, today, a lot of people will have these epiphanies where all of a sudden they wake up and they're channeling the Palladians, start a YouTube channel and get 100,000 followers. It's no longer this sort of place where there's a slow burn on this ascension that you referred to. It is palpable. What you are speaking of for the audience level and anyone who's experienced this is tangible. It is a substance-based realization that anyone that studies under me or knows anything about this channel can experience and feel the words that you speak as being the truth. They don't have to understand it. They don't have to decipher it. It's now. This is a mastery, and I think it's so amazing that I get to live in this reincarnation as who I am as an immortal, and get to experience this within the landscape of planet Earth, as you refer to the Gaia, the mother. It's amazing at this time in the juncture of humanity, what we're experiencing, and the fact that masters, and I refer to you as a master, I hope that's not offensive, as a master like yourself that can channel this frequency and bring it into this space, I just find it absolutely profound and amazing to be a part of and share in an experience like we're having right now. Now, I like to frame things up and share them in more detail. Your information and understanding of stuff is so beautiful and so eloquent, the way that you merge this understanding from one thing to another, and you had me at hello. But there are a lot of things where people find it, they're beyond the, this is the formula for this, or physics doesn't get the same juice that might have got maybe 5 or 10 years ago. Actually, quite honestly, I look at people are experiencers. They want to experience this stuff. They're past the idea of, well, if you tell me this is going to happen, happens. Well, it must happen that way. I always remind people the truth is your truth, and things change once you separate from the mundane reality and return to your true self. You realize that nothing was as it seems, and the energy potential, I believe, and that's why people gravitate to Taoist alchemy, is an absolute game changer for anyone on the journey of seeking to remember who they are, because it becomes tangible. You can sink your teeth into it. Like when you speak to me, I don't care what you say, I know it's true. You have the presence of these frequencies that come into this space that I can filter through and experience and merge with to validate what it is you're saying. The charge that we're having right now is the very now moment, and this symbiotic relationship that we are unified. And it's amazing that a lot of people, and you probably had this on your journey. I forgot to ask you, how long have you been on this journey? Since you were a young child. So you have spent many biological human expression of the human condition, many years advancing your knowing and reinforcing that through your experience. But many people, they speak on things, but they're unable to validate it. They're unable to realize it. I always say, I might have got a little spoiled. Maybe it's just the way it is. Literally 3 minutes after I channeled Latsu 32 years ago, I witnessed a physical healing of gangrenous flesh turning back to pink in color in 40 minutes. And I experienced these sort of like, you know, you know, spontaneous physical healings constantly. And I asked myself, I guess that's what I signed up for, like Oliver Twist. You want more, boy? Yes, may I have another, sir? Yeah, I mean, it's just literally how it is. So, I mean, how your relationship with your teachers and your lineage and bringing this to planet Earth is, sobering for anyone that just tunes in to what you're speaking of. Can you share a little bit more with the audience on what you use to help the experience of the seeker validate that knowing for themselves? Say, for example, when they first get lured in, they get magnetized to what it is that you're saying. They know it's true. And how do they obtain an ability to transmit or transmute or transfuse it into themselves to return to who they are?
Indeed, very well said, and thank you so much for everything that you just shared. I love when you talk about that I do have the presence of the frequencies that we convey. Part of this is that physically my template or this vessel was engineered directly through the very advanced organic technology of the Arcturians. Andromedan also have contributed, and there's other groups who have brought in their really advanced level of knowledge to bring this vessel. And why I say that, Asan, is because when we speak, even though you see one face, you can hear one voice, it is very much the unification of many beings that speaks as many of us, that conveying very specific level of vibratory experiences and frequencies that allow to really feel and receive. So on a deeper level, at a soul level, we also help you to reactivate naturally what is organically already innate to you, and helping you to really unwind and release such the attachments or the false impression of the security and the safety of this third dimensional logic mind that really casts people,
I don't
you
know
know,
how
and
big your crew is, but I mean, I keep seeing anywhere from 20 to 30 to 40 different energies that are all working in concert with each other. And I referred to that alien as some sort of like platinum colored alien that was extremely tall with large bug eyes, very beautiful looking, but I've never seen that before. I don't know whether you could shine some light on that, or everyone sees things differently, right? How they transmute the information.
before we go there, you made a very good point here, is even to Taoism or whether it's other form of sacred practices, Buddhism and other places. So we can see as you speak very beautifully and eloquently. Well, the way we perceive the communication is we can tell that your soul and those you represent in that lineage, you brought in a very specific way to help transmuting this, what we call this false matrix reality, and everything that engage all of our physical senses, and especially the pulling of the string of the heart is so much, energy that's been pulled to engage people and maintain them in that lower frequency through their physical senses. So it is very fascinating for us to observe how there's a many alternative or approach to also what we have been perceiving for thousands of years. So it just makes me smile with joy just to see that, by listening to you and feeling the energy, and I can tap into, many lineage at the same time as you speak, that I can tell that this is part of the blueprint that you brought with you and how you have chosen at a soul level. Embodying what you felt will be the highest way to help to understand your journey and helping every people around the world to understand their journey. So we do the same, but just from our out of this world, out of this paradigm perspective, and thousands of years of archives of history of learning. And Arcturians, if we have to learn anything from us, is that we have the capacity to be in intercommunication with each other, regardless of where we are at different point within the holographic multiverse. And this is where we are also existing beyond each point of this aspect in the multiverse, and we're able to perceive all at once such a multitude of time cycles or timelines and energy evolving all at once, and we can see which one we're going to align ourselves with and how we're going to redeploy, our level of assistance or which frequency that needs to go. So it's very complex the way we do it. So we're master at a much higher, very advanced level of mental faculties, and we work with a very high level of a light spectrum frequency that is still unknown, undiscovered in this reality. And more and more as the human race elevate themselves in a much higher, more center state of consciousness, you're going to be able to tap more and more into these new light spectrum that's coming back, returning to the planet to really help. Even on a DNA level, it's going to really help to accelerate, enhance that level of spark of evolution within your DNA. And we talk about mastery, and that's the goal, is to help the human race overall, or this part of this quadrant within the multiverse, how to return of a natural point of mastery. And we understand that there's many avenues or explorative avenues to experiment and embody fully that level of mastery. So you talk about these silver, to talk about the silver energy that you associate with the star beings. So those you describe, are those the one that you saw within your own field, or do you communicate it with? Can you give me a bit more?
It's sort of like oscillating in and out of your auric field.
Oh,
So
of
when I
my
talk
auric
about,
field.
yeah, so when I talk about sensory perception, it's
Ah.
like another level of when I was just keying the points of oscillation and reverberation that you experience with the energy potential. I see it first, and then I choose to sample it, or I just identify it. And this is the type of stuff where people freak out and go, "Well, how do you do that?" Well, it's just a learnt skill, like anything. You just develop the skill, and it
Mhm.
becomes realized. It transmutes from a sense of delusion to an actually self-realized transmutation of that, when you can repeat it and it's validated for yourself and others through clear senses, mediumship, channeling, physical healing, manifestation, magic. These things are repeatable. You just have to cultivate them. That's the purpose of alchemy and alchemizing your energy potential within your physical body, is so you can return to these things, right? It's like, for me, 30 years ago, aliens, I would come across maybe, once every couple of years. The last 6 to 12 months, I must see a dozen aliens on a weekly basis in people's auric fields. Or furthermore, if I just open the doors up and have being a channel, a direct channel myself, which is the highest level of ascension for a Taoist seeker, is being able to transmute that information. It's like it's only self-realized when you can validate it within this material. It's just more nonsensical when people go, oh, and be aware there's going to be something horrible coming in, and people flutter their eyes and they do all these weird things. Listen, I can tell you right now, when I transmitted Lasso for the first time 30 years ago, there's a beam of light that comes from one direction only, and this is a universal thing that I have yet to have anyone deny that channels. It comes from down into the physical flesh, and it saturates that physical flesh. Now, your sensory perception of that will be determined by your own cultivational skills, and it will transmute to a subatomic level. So what does that mean? When I'm channeling directly, and I'm always in mediumship with my teachers, I have over 171 of them, but they're what they call the dialogue to the monologue. I get direct source information from them. Furthermore, New Age spiritual talk would be the Akashic Records, Halls of Mente, Source Energy, whatever you want to call it. But it's able to be transmutable here. Now, when I directly channel Latsu, he commandeers my expression, my mannerisms, my tone of voice. It changes the whole speaking transmutation, and it's really evident. Now, I channel with my eyes open. It freaks people out. I don't blink. And people go, holy shit, he didn't blink for like 15 minutes because it's not me. And then the tone of frequency changes. But one of the biggest things, and I've gone over this with many channelers over many decades, old school stuff, I can put my hand out and light a flame under it and leave it there for as long as I choose to. And when I remove the hand, it has no damage to the physical flesh. There is a transmutation of that unity that comes into this physical body. Now, what I'm tending to find these days is a lot of people, unlike yourself, because I can tell you right now, being consciously doing this for 30 years, just in case people are asking, well, Shifu, what do you think? What do you think of Viviane? Well, she's an OG. You have direct source information from my perspective. Now, you don't need me to validate that, but I can tell you right now, experiencing all the things that I am from your transmission within this space is on a high level of what I call spiritual consciousness. And it cannot be replicated if you are not there. And so a lot of people tend to, they get into this state and they start closing their eyes and moving their head like Stevie Wonder, and they say they're seeing this and that. And I think that's cool. I think whenever anyone gets one of those, oh shit, you can see I'm full of shit, I'll always be like, listen, it's not about being full of shit. It's like you are at a place where you believe that there's something going on and you still haven't validated it enough within the core of yourself. Let me help you return to that frequency so it can be validated, because there's something there. You're not sitting there doing this for something to do. You intuitively feel that this is real. So let's make it real. If it's not realized, make it real by being able to validate the information. Now, for me, it comes in that transmuted state. Now, most people call supernatural paranormal stuff, speaking to entities, exercising entities, clearing, feng shui, what we call body dowsing, where we find ley lines, vortices, power centers, all this kind of stuff, is more self-realized. It's what they call within a new age spiritual path or parapsychology as what we call ideomotor response, where friends of mine that are teachers of remote viewing, I teach remote viewing too, is a self-realized communication with the conscious and unconscious process. Now, they don't go as deep as spiritual sense, but divinity is present within that, i.e. pendulum, tarot cards, Ouija boards, dowsing tools, whatever you want to call it. You are transmitting the divine messaging through this physical body, and you're getting an answer. This is true for everybody. It's just how deep you want to go to start mastering that skill. And so this is what within a new age hypnosis, psychology, metaphors, It's not a metaphor, it's just a definition of what it is, and it's called idiomotor or ideograms, which is your own information being transmuted. How you are getting this direct source information, how is it translating into your conversation right now that you can validate it for yourself and another seeker, maybe a student, maybe a client, whatever it is. How do they sink their teeth into this method, which is what I call the method to the madness, is a cultivational process, a methodology, which is what Taoism offers. How do they sink their teeth into it so it can be realized and it's not just another, fleeting moment of, oh, I felt this. And this is where the spiritual dragon comes in for me. People pursue that, right? They end up on my doorstep because they're like, oh my goodness, I saw an apparition. I heard grandma. I had a vivid dream. I had a premonition. I saw a ghost. I felt energy. These are all great examples of entry level. Realizing you're misaligned, to be realigned is just a breath away by getting into the system. What would you do for one of your followers or students to help them realize, how do you merge that so they can validate it, not just experience your transmission, which is of the highest divine source, in my opinion? How do you help them bring that in? Or maybe perhaps you just give them transmissions, because I mean, that's also a practice in of itself.
Thank you for all your sharing. It is most fascinating. I can tell you that my entire delegation is very attentive and very they're learning a lot from your soul journey. And so thank you for sharing everything that you just expressed with us. We can see that it's just for us, it show how much humanity and a multitude of souls who have come and incarnate on this planet have chosen very specific path. And it is always for us, the word that comes is fascinating indeed to see how everybody or every soul has chosen to serve. So we are really, when you share so deeply and with details, it allows us to tap in directly into an aspect of your journey. So I saw you at different stages of your life on your path. And so I'm learning a great deal about you. So thank you for allowing us, all the while when we are still connecting to everyone listening. So it is a very profound experience right now for us. So yes, there's so many of us here with all of you. So the way we support with all those who we call students, those who are drawn to our teachings, are really ready to embrace their own enlightened path. And we offer genuine of the highest, as you mentioned it yourself so beautifully, on the highest vibrational level, the expertise of a very, very ancient civilization. And our presence also simply bring that level, it enhances the quality of this inner transformation and the transmutation that it requires for them, whether it's from, a deep unconscious field, whether it's helping them to realize the multitude of their multidimensional self. I see also the result of clearing old time cycles and being able to bring some of these soul fractals back to their centerness, like we offer, for example, the Arcturian holographic group healing on a monthly basis. And it's really our way to reach people from all over the world and experiences what it feels like to really be completely outside of this matrix reality. It's really coming back more of a simplified and yet very potent point of connection, is to experiment your own divine self, who you are, and to start to realize that you are so much more than this physical form, that this identity, you are so much more that even any belief system that have ever coexisted on this planet, you start to really open yourself on a universal consciousness and start to perceive yourself beyond time and space. Um, and so our teachings are for those who are really ready to embrace the next level for themselves. And of course, how it's going to trigger a multitude of activation even on the planet. This planet is also very important. She play a masterpiece. She play a vital role in the next phase of the evolution process, and it's really supporting a multitude of species, multitude of sentient life forms, to allow to have different stages of experience, whether it's etheric, whether it's physical, whether it's spiritual, whether it's the dissolving of the egoic energy. And we can still perceive if there is some underlying ego energy, even with the most seemingly advanced teaching, which is simply observing where is still lingering in the field, and we're helping to pinpoint what is lingering in the field to help everyone to really simply return to that point of perfection, to remembering that your body template is already perfect, that you can already tune in, that you have the encoding of the entire universe, creation is you, and being able to help people. And I can ask many people to talk about their own experience, and I feel that I will speak even louder that with a brief summary of what we do. What we do is very advanced. It's beautiful. It's empowered with love. It's empowered with respect. It's empowered with the fact that we see you in your true aspect of who you are, and we are simply mirroring or supporting that process to take place. And so, like you mentioned, it is truly beyond words. People need to experience it for themselves. And the point of cultivation that you speak of, it's also part of our teachings, just from a different, I love this word, perspective. And the state of cultivation is what allowed to dissolve the need to be validated or to have, confirmation, validation, and being able to feel that what you're experiencing is real. If you experience it, just own it, bring it into your field, and say, I am ready to understand my experience, reveal to me the multifacets of that experience. And what is real for you, it's perfect for you. So that's one thing we see human beings evolving beyond in their future aspect of themselves, which is in the now, is that you're going to be able to release the need to feel validated, whether it's through a book, a teaching, a practice, a message, a feeling. And we talk about the alchemy process. Yes, the alchemization process for us is that great transmutation, well beyond. Um, and we know when we speak of, we have gone through a multitude of evolutionary process within our own history. And when we, when I commune back to our own realm and I connect to our spherical archives within the Arcturian realm, the, the overflow of encoding of knowledge and the pathway to wisdom that has led our civilization to reach again a point of reunification. And we are constantly maintaining ourselves in that perfect vibratory state with each other, with other races, with any particle of life or expression of light that we encounter throughout this very, very vast, it is an holographic universe. And when you start to really start to feel and recognize yourself as such, the gateways are opening, so to speak, and just a figure of speech. Octrans, we speak a lot as figure of speech, imagery, metaphors to illustrate some points. So we bring some metaphors to help within the sentient field of your understanding here what we really relate to. But it's a joy to be here. We have learned such a great deal by listening and feeling and are recognizing your frequency in your sacred journey. So we thank you for being of service and for having chosen this beautiful path that you're on right now. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. It seems to me like there's a universal consensus of what it is. I think it's not about needing to be validated, but there's a sense of psychotic sense of delusion, which is where most humans stay. Once you return and then you go past no return as a Taoist, your imperium, or someone might call it dominion, your command of this present moment will be realized in the ability to manifest create, heal. These become the very currency of this material. So you have to be able to move to a point. The currency is something that is the substance. There is a validation of that, ascending OBEs, NDEs, sleep paralysis, astral projection, all these types of things that are evidence of your own eternal immortal self, which is the question everyone asks, who am I? Why am I here? And, from a Taoist perspective, you come from the void, which is the primordial mother, and it creates the seed of creation, which is the yang energy within the womb. And within a cycle of 9, there is the creation of all things, i.e., the cycles of the cosmos. There is a mirroring effect. Yes, I do agree with you. There is a mirroring effect that takes place that will validate your very experience. But to return to perfection, there must be the crumbs, my dear Watson. And when you find those crumbs, then you become self-realized. The experiential moment is how that is validated. And so, whether, most people tend to talk about the ascension so high you don't feel it. I would love to have a healthy, conversation about how people come to that conclusion, because what happens is within this material is a compression where you compress it to its hardest point that becomes the substance within this electromagnetism. And you spoke more on that light spectrum, is that return from the darkness, which would be more referred to a physicist new age perspective of the unified field theory, the 0 point scalar wave. However, these scientists want to sort of like regurgitate this knowing of the entanglement, which is, basically black hole energy. Now, this is a teaching that Taoists have been teaching for thousands of years. And so that primordial mother reveals all things. And from the center of the sun, the primordial mother creates the sun. From the sun, the frequency of light, the light spectrum that shines down upon, as you put it, Mother Earth, Gaia, there is a spectrum, a light spectrum that would be considered the rainbow. And the center point of that is here, which is the pink and green hue, which so many ancient indigenous practices refer to as the energy body, the chakra system. We call it the dantians within Taoism. There's so many validating experiences through multitude of indigenous practices that can bring you to a point, but it must be self-realized. So, there's only 3 people in the world I've ever come across that are Kundalini masters, even though everyone would attest to, I've had a Kundalini experience or equivalent to that, and I don't deny it. I believe that that is very true. There's an energy potential that has been awakened within the seeker that makes everything more tangible, more palpable, more sensory, that it validates your very truth, right? So, out of those 3 Kundalini masters, 2 of them were in the Indonesian jungles, gurus that levitated, and the other one that levitated was one of my students. And so a lot of people go, well, if he levitates, why can't you levitate? Because I couldn't care less about levitating. I can give you the formula and teach you these alchemical processes, but it doesn't excite me. What excites me is mental, emotional, physical, spiritual healing, and I want to see it now. I don't want to see it yesterday or tomorrow. I want it now. And that's that sensory perception that is so tangible that makes it the experience real to the seeker. And it sounds to me like your very training, or how you transmit your information from all your teachers, and you are the facet of that as a catalyst and conduit within this realm, is so beautiful and so now moment. And with this experience, do you furthermore teach people this stuff individually, or do you transmit it? Do you give people readings? Do you stay in just the information of teaching people the understanding of the languaging of the your people per se? Is there a light language that you use specifically?
It's all the above. And so to wrap up our time together, because I have unfortunately other engagement
Yes.
coming in, the hour went by so quickly. Again, I want to thank you for bringing your teaching and your perspective through the pathway of Taoism. There's many pathway throughout the world that people are taking on to understand and rediscovering their own, like you mentioned, immortality and divinity. So the thing is that even though to you I may look like a human, the thing about is I am truly an Arcturian being. So think of it as I'm an ET incarnated
Hmm.
in a semi-hybrid form. So
Hmm.
when you talk about referring to my teachers, is I am the teacher, and it's the collective of all of us that represent through the embodiment of the one, which is me, because I am the one physically boots on the ground. So it has a different quality in terms of the interaction, the impact, the experiential, the teaching, the experience, whether it's a form of meditation series. I'm the founder of the Universal Arcturian online community. We have a multitude of offerings, membership. We do also global events with our members. We always encourage everyone to be the utmost, the highest potential who they can be.
Hmm.
What we offer is really an essence of the future aspect of what human race in the advanced way of who they are can truly achieve and be in this lifetime. And as again we coexisting completely outside even on this the Milky Way, we come from a completely different sphere of reality. So we bring our perspective, our knowledge, our
Hmm.
presence in a very unique way. Rarely, very rarely, will an advanced intergalactic being who vibrate at such a level of has frequency and vibrancy and connectiveness, we never reincarnate in a denser physical form on another planet. So
Hmm.
we did this project. It took us a long time to achieve because of the urgency of seeing an aspect of creation that was reaching out their beautiful, mature energy of reascending again. So we send one of our own to be on the planet. So what we offer as such a level of positive impact and upliftment. I have received thousands of testimonials for people I've worked with over the years, worldwide, and everywhere we go, I'm always greeted by the stone nations, the guardians of the sacred site we are in, whether it was in Egypt, the Sphinx, which just came back from Uluru, when we were also right connecting with the ancient guardians in Stone Edge in different places around the world. The first thing, the moment physically I bring my blueprint on the sites, I am immediately granted and welcome as a nocturne being. They can see that they understand that they're looking at a very advanced and ancient being that
Hmm.
has returned in this form. So the beauty of all of it, if to remember one thing about today, is that whichever pathway you chose to take, whether it's the sacred pathway to Taoism, ancient scriptures, Buddhism, or any other form of practices. Ultimately, what is important is allow yourself to have the peace to rediscovering the beauty, the grace, the empowerment of you being, and to go really truly beyond it, to understand that whichever side or pathway you take, the pathway will serve you to a certain level, and then you need to release it. So to allowing more natural connections. We talk about the mother of creation, what we refer to the prime creator, that omnipresence, which I have personally been in the presence of. There's no form, there's no gender, there's no galaxy, there's no label. It's just pure, all there is beingness, pure intelligence. And I was welcome in all of my beingness, and I was offered an opportunity to evolve even beyond any physical form, whether it's a star being, whether it's a monk, whether it's a human, a galactic fairy, an elemental, a planet. I was giving an invitation about 5 years ago to evolve well beyond any form of physical embodiment. I was going to return as pure consciousness within the one. And I turn it down only because I really want to fulfill my mission here. I really want to fulfill my promise that I made thousands of years ago to one celestial being that contained a multitude of species and a multitude of sentient life forms who I feel and connect to every single day. I can feel the entire planet every day. So this is why I chose to be here. And again, I am so really pleased and joyful to be here with you. And thank you for bringing also your light, your teaching from your perspective for 30 years of mastery. And yes, we all, again, no one
If
invents,
I'm going to be completely
we are
honest,
rediscovering it together.
just
So,
thousands of years of reincarnating in the same immortal state. I've been a Taoist priest 1,000 times. I am
excellent.
I am the reincarnation of Latsu. So it's like that immortality becomes, as you would put it, omnipresent, imperium, command, dominion, maestro of this present moment. I love it. With that, I want to thank you. I'm going to put all your social media under this podcast and people where to find you. I want my students, my disciples, 126s, the subscribers to this channel to go out and check out what you're offering and to immerse yourself in it in any way, form within the social sphere, the interweb, and get familiar with the lineage that you speak of, that you transmit right here, right now. In closing, I'm going to ask you one question, my friend. What is your definition of spiritual consciousness?
Does there need to be a definition? It's simply the embodiment of who we really are. We find it remembering more and more. It's the essence of your being. Just allow that to be enough to guide your way and releasing yourself from the entrapment on a multitude level of mental concept and energies. Just allow yourself to be the pure essence of who you are and let that be guiding your pathway every day. And there's nothing mundane anymore. Everything is an invitation
Mm-hmm.
to feel, to remembering, to expand. Allow yourself to be fluid and teachable, as the Pleiadians would say.
Beautiful, my dear friend. I've done hundreds of these podcasts, never had the same answer. I'm very grateful for you. Thank you for coming here today. And I want to thank the universe for bringing you into my life. I want to thank the audience for sharing their time with us today. I am your humble servant and seafood Taoist Master San Qing, and I'll see you in the next one, guys.